Right, so in today's video, I'm going to be going over the basic lawn maintenance that you need to be doing over the lawn care season. Now, I've had a few people comment about, the sorts of things you need to be doing in May, in June, and, in terms of like specific months, what sort of stuff do you need to be doing to your lawn? Now, what I don't want to do in today's video is I don't want to break it down into individual months. And the reason for that is because the months vary. And obviously, there are particular trends when it comes to like May and June every year, but the way I see lawn care is you've almost got to adapt to whatever the weather is throwing at you. So for example, we had a heat wave about 2 weeks ago and the lawns were under an immense amount of stress. But recently we've had quite a bit of rain and the weather's been a little bit more mild. I mean, except for today, it's actually, cracking the flags today. And that, changes the way you actually go about lawn care. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually cutting your grass. How often should you be doing it and how high should you be cutting it to? Now, this lawn had a cut yesterday and it was on the third highest setting on the Hayter. So it's around about 30 mil high, which, for a UK lawn is quite a nice height to actually have it. There are loads of lawns you'll see that are cut much shorter, but the only issue with cutting your lawn quite short is you need to, be doing more maintenance on it. You need to be watering it more often, putting more products down to keep that plant nice and healthy. If you leave the plant a little bit longer, it's sort of like, it's less taxing in terms of, you don't need to be doing as much to the lawn to keep it in quite a nice condition. Now, granted, a really short lawn can be, what most people want. It can be, a really nice aesthetic, whereas I think when you have a lawn that's a little bit longer, it actually stripes up quite well. So, there are advantages to having a shorter lawn, but they're, equally on the other side, there are advantages to having a longer lawn too. And a similar thing goes for this lawn too. Now, I've been cutting this on the exact same setting as I've been cutting the lawn down at the bottom, cutting it to around about 30 mil. But as you can sort of tell with this lawn, it's not had a cut in 3 days, and you can just see how long the lawn has actually become. Now, it's almost twice the length that it was. Now, a bit of a problem with that is if you're not cutting frequently enough, the next time you go on and cut this at, let's say, 30 mil, you're taking off about half of the grass plants and it's putting under an immense amount of stress. So you need to be getting on frequently and cutting your lawn. And therein lies the question that I do see a lot of YouTubers talking about and a lot of lawn care experts talking about, how often you should cut your lawn. And, the general rule of thumb is cut it at least once a week in the summer, and when it gets to spring and autumn, reduce that to around about once every fortnight. Now, I disagree with that massively. I mean, it's a good rule of thumb if you've only sort of got the weekends to actually be doing any lawn care. That makes sense. Whereas you should only really be cutting your grass when your grass needs to be cut. Now, this lawn at the front, I've not been cutting it on as low of a setting as I've been doing in the back garden. I've been cutting it on the fourth highest setting on the Hayter, which is, around about 40 mil. And you can see at the moment it is much, much longer than that. Again, this is for a similar reason to actually the back lawn. This has only been 3 days since it's last cut and it's grown massively since. So if your lawn's growing like this, you do need to be getting on, every 2 days, 3 days max, just to keep on top of the lawn, because if you're cutting too much off, it's going to cause loads of stress. Now, the reason why it's been growing so long at the moment is purely to do with the type of weather we've got and the products that have actually gone down onto this lawn recently. This lawn had an application of fertiliser about 2 weeks ago, and we've had quite a bit of rain since. So all that's meant is that the grass is in a period of like accelerated growth where it's been watered quite well. It's had quite a lot of heat and a lot of sun to keep it growing, and there's lots of nitrogen in the soil at the moment, which has given the grass that massive boost of growth. So I'm going to get on, I'm going to give this lawn a cut, I'm going to keep it on the fourth highest setting, and I'll show you just how much grass actually comes off this relatively small lawn. So there we go, it's on the fourth highest setting on the Hayter, which is around about 40 mil. You can just see how long this grass is. It's definitely been left far too long. And by far too long, I mean it's literally been left an extra day, longer than it probably should have. Now, just have a look in the grass box now, you'll be able to see, look how high the grass actually is there. I mean, look at that, that is absolutely ridiculous. It's completely packed full. Now, the problem with clippings like this is you can see how big they are. That's around about half the plant that's come off from this lawn this morning, and that's far too much. If you're cutting that much off your lawn every time, it's going to make it so stressed. So regular cutting is key. Bearing in mind the size of the lawns I've got, this wheelie bin's half full, and that's only from about a week and a half's worth of cutting the grass. You can see we've got a few mushrooms in this lawn as well, and this isn't necessarily a problem. All it means is that there's quite a lot of moisture in the soil, which, you know, for this time of year is quite good, to be honest, like the middle of summer. But it means overnight that moisture's probably been sat in the soil, and it's enabled these mushrooms to start growing. But you can, you know, nick them off with your lawnmower or just pull them out. That's simply out of the lawn by hand. Now, strimming is the least frequent thing that I do, and the main reason for that is just because it's a bit of a hassle having to go around the lawns all the time with the strimmer. But also, you can give it a good week or so before it starts looking a little bit of a mess. Now, in the middle of summer like we are in now, sort of end of June, early July, the edges of the lawn start to look, you know, a bit of a mess because the grass is growing so fast. But, you know, once a week is more than enough when it comes to strimming. It will be ideal to actually charge the strimmer before you start, because it's just died right at the end. Now, this time I've dropped it down to the third highest setting, which is about 30 mil. So quite a bit of this lawn is going to come off, but it's going to take it down to a much more presentable height. Now, the reason I'm cutting this lawn a little bit lower than the lawn at the front is because the one at the front gets quite a lot of the sun throughout the day, and it sits there baking for maybe, you know, 3/4 of the day. Whereas this lawn at the back, and even the lawn at the bottom too, they're only in the sun for around about half the day. So, you know, that other half, they're sitting in shade and they're able to recover. So they're not getting as stressed by the sun. The longer you leave your grass, the more resilient it's going to be overall. So when we have droughts or, you know, periods of really hot weather, it's able to survive for much longer without going dormant. Whereas if you cut your lawn too short and it's sitting in the sun all day, it's going to go to crispy town, it's going to go dormant, and you'll end up with a lawn that's either going really yellow or really brown. Now, for this lawn down at the bottom, what I am going to do is I'm going to take the hater down to the actually second lowest setting now. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to see if I can train this grass to be a little bit lower. So it had a cut yesterday on the third highest setting, which is about 30 mil. I'm going to take it to around about 20 mil today. It might be a little bit bigger than 20 mil, to be quite honest. I'm going to see if it can actually, you know, over the next week or two, if it can tolerate those low heights. I mean, if it can't, I'll raise the height back up. But this lawn sees the least amount of sun. I mean, it still gets a fair bit in the middle of the day, but it's significantly less than the one at the top and the one at the front. And although we have some nice weather this weekend, next week it gives quite a bit of rain. So it'll give this lawn down at the bottom a chance to recover if it does put it under too much stress. So there we go, the second lowest setting. Let's see what it does to this lawn. I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't exactly look amazing, to be quite honest. You can see if you get down close to the actual grass itself, you can see some dead grass blades below. You can see a little bit of the soil, and the actual blades of grass are just a little bit lighter. The reason why it is looking a little bit lighter, you know, up close to the grass, is because we've taken off those dark tips and we've almost got, like, you know, the base of the plant, which is naturally just a little bit lighter. But if I cut on this height maybe for the next week or two, I'll see if the grass starts to get a little bit greener, a little bit thicker down at the soil level, and we'll see how it goes. And, you know, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. That's the beauty of lawn care and, you know, gardening in general, is you can try something out, you can see how it works, and if you don't like it or you want to change it, then give it some time to recover and it'll bounce back. Grass is a much more resilient plant than what people give it credit for. When you see grasses which have gone brown it doesn't necessarily mean that the grass has died, it just means that it's sitting dormant and it's waiting. My front lawn had a brown rim around it when we had the heat wave the other week, and as soon as we had the rain, about a week later, the actual edges started to come back because the plant wasn't dead, it was just sitting dormant, waiting to be sort of, rehydrated. Also, the edges look horrific, but the strimmer is dead at the moment, waiting for the batteries to charge, and then we can get on and sort the edges out. And as well as regular cutting of your grass, you need to be getting on with fertiliser. Now, there's so many people who actually don't get on the lawns with fertiliser, and then as you get into the summer, the grasses start to go yellow, they start to go brown, really stressed, and they just can't cope with the conditions. Now, adding fertiliser is just going to give your lawn that boost the growth that it needs to, keep on growing healthy throughout the summer season. Ideally, you want to be putting it onto your lawn every, 6 to 7 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks potentially. But you can also put it on even more frequently too. So I'm going to try over the next few months putting fertiliser onto this lawn every 4 weeks, just to see how it takes to it. Because, like I've just said before, a lot of things with lawn care are trial and error, and you'll find what works for your lawn best. But ideally, you want to be putting fertiliser down before this ends up in too much of a state, so then you can actually keep on top of it and maintain your lawn throughout the lawn care season. But as ever, when you put fertiliser down, just make sure that you've got some heavy rainfalls coming, or that you're willing to actually water it in really well over the few days after you first put it down. Now, I just want to finish off by talking about some of the products that I do use on my lawn on a regular basis. So the first one has to be liquid seaweed. Now, the main aim of liquid seaweed is to promote root development. So when you put this down on your lawn, you're not going to see instant results. It's not going to be a case of you put it down and then the next day your grass is looking greener than any grass you've ever seen in your life. That's not the case. This is more for, the actual health of the plant. So it's going to promote really good root development. It's going to make sure that there are, lots of nutrients within the soil for the plant to be able to feed off of. Now, this is the A1 Lawn Seaweed Extract. You don't have to just get the A1 Lawn stuff. There are so many different options you can buy online. So I used to use, I think it was the Envy Seaweed, which is in fact the same seaweed we use on all the plants around the garden at the moment. But for the lawn, I'm using the A1 Lawn stuff. And this one, it is a little bit thicker. I've not actually noticed a massive difference between this and the Envy one, and I bet the difference isn't that massive. But the instructions are on the back. You get yourself a knapsack spray, apply it to the lawn. If you don't want to get a spray because you've not got the space for it, then you can get smaller, hand sprays which you can carry around, and it is, a brilliant way to get stuff down onto your lawn. In terms of when you can apply this to your lawn, it's all year round. So I apply this every 30 days or so. So every month I get on, I give it an application of liquid seaweed, and it just, like I said, promotes that good root development and keeps the plant healthy. I wouldn't advise using it when there's frost in the winter, but any other time of year, spring, summer, autumn, winter, you can get on with seaweed, really good for your plants. The next thing I would suggest using on a regular basis is wetting agents, and I've talked about this a few times now on my channel, and I only started using it this year, and the reason being is because I just didn't really know what the purpose was until this lawn care season. So what this basically does is it breaks down the tension of each of the water droplets that land in your lawn. So whether that's from the sprinkler or from the rain, it helps to distribute that water more evenly throughout your lawn. And a big benefit of this is that it's going to help your grass stay more resilient whenever there's a drought, because the moisture is able to get further and deeper into the soil. What you don't want to be doing in the middle of summer, you don't be watering your grass for like 5-10 minutes, because the water's going to sit on the top layer of your soil. It's not going to penetrate deep enough into the soil layer below, and you're going to promote things like weed grasses, other types of weeds that might start to develop in your lawn, such as clover. So you want to be using something like this to try and combat those water problems. I would suggest applying this to your lawn whenever you're putting something down like seaweed. So I did a video recently where I just put this down on the lawn because we were going into a heat wave, or we're in fact in the middle of a heat wave at that time, to make it sort of more drought resistant. But these two things definitely go hand in hand together. And just one thing to mention before I do end the video is that if there's anything you've got any sort of questions about, or something you want more clarification on, or any sort of ideas where you think, I want to know a little bit more about that, more specifics about why you do, X, Y, or Z, then let me know in the comments below, and I'll see if I can put a video together to address whatever it is. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video. I hope you found it useful, and if you'd like to check out any of my other content, such as my garden renovation or any of my lawn set videos, then head over to my channel, and if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. Finally, thanks for watching.